Is it too late for the Rams to get involved in free agency? No, but you want them to bide their time. I'm Joe Terosian, and this is Ram View, and it is April 5th, 2022. I got the date right. And we're here to talk about Ram football here on Ram View. I'm thrilled. I get to do back-to-back days because I'm feeling better, and I hope you're doing well. But we're just going to talk some Ram football here. Not as much NFL as we did yesterday, but just getting into the business of where the Rams are at and what's going on with them. And so we'll start. You know, one of the things I wanted to break down on the Bobby Wagner deal, again, is like I said, yesterday I made it clear that I'm not anti-Bobby Wagner. I'm also not anti players getting paid whatever they can get paid. That does not bother me at all what a player gets paid. What bothers me is what counts against the salary cap, because as it counts against the salary cap, that affects our team. That affects my team. And that's where I get upset if we're going to give serious money to a position that is not premium, that the season doesn't end if an injury happens at this position, that you can fill this with a player drafted 104th overall, an undrafted free agent, and a guy who didn't play much at all his first 3 years in the league. And I'm talking in terms of Ernest Jones, Troy Reeder, and Travian Howard, and the Rams won a Super Bowl. So do I like they signed Wagner? Absolutely, right? And I have no begrudgment of anything that he is being paid. I was just concerned about his salary cap. And here's the good news. His hit against the salary cap this year is 2.5 rocks. Just 2.5 rocks. And that's amazing. Now, in 2023, 2024, it goes up to 12 rocks and 12, 11, 11.5. But here's the deal. If the Rams release him after this year, he's a $7.5 million hit against the salary cap. Now, when I say rocks, I say that for million because I hate saying million all the time. But in 2024, he's only a $3 million hit. In 2025 and 2026, it goes down to 2 and 1, which means they could release him. They could release him after 2024 or 2023, and there's just no significant hit anymore to the salary cap. Yeah, there'll be dead money, but the dead money after next year, and I'm talking 2023, the dead money after that is $6 million, and that's not a whole lot. That's not going to kill you. And so yes, what concerns me in these deals is the flexibility of having room under the cap and paying too much. And of course, they worked it all out. It'll be really surprising to see if Wagner lasts all 5 years. But if he lasts all 5 years, and we have to be thinking that way, our mindset is still 20th century about these athletes. They're in better shape than they've ever been before. Also, Wagner's going to be playing with a better team. After that Legion of Boom disappeared, the front four in front of him, the front seven, he was the star. And right now he's got Aaron Donald, A'Shawn Robinson, Greg Gaines, Leonard Floyd, and a bunch of help in that front seven. And I'm not going to discount Justin Hollins because I like Justin Hollins too. So we should expect Wagner to thrive for a couple of years. And either way, even if he's on the downside, even at the end of 5 years, he'll still be better than Troy Reeder. Okay. God bless Troy Reeder, right? How do you solve a problem like Troy Reeder? You play him as long as you can, and then you don't tender him. And that's it. And you know what? No one else is signed him either. So maybe, hey, if there's room for a Troy Reeder reunion down the road, a special teams guy, someone to put in a blowout. Hey, I don't have any problems with Troy Reeder. I just don't want to pay any money to him, right? And that's the other thing too. Wagner's a 2.5 rock hit on the salary cap this year. And as the Rams have room to maneuver and begin to make more room to maneuver under that cap, everything in the free agent market's going to get cheaper. We talked about Jadeveon Clowney yesterday. I'm not against Jadeveon Clowney. I'm just against giving him market value. But there's other names out there that we roll into April now. We're going towards mid-April, and then we're getting into May. Camps open, OTAs happen, mini camps, all those things coming in June. There's players on the market still that have value, but you just don't want to pay them. These are names that I just wanted to throw out real quick here, names that I think are reasonable. I don't know if Stephen Gilmore is reasonable. What you read about him, he's a classic cover guy that may struggle in a zone, and we know what the Rams do in terms of a zone on defense. And so I don't know if he's the right fit, and he's definitely not the right fit at the money he wants right now. But here's some other names. We talked about Jadeveon Clowney, who'd be a great addition at a cutthroat price, but some other guys that might be looking just to come in a rotational situation, not as a star, but in a rotational situation and help out. Calais Campbell, right? That guy's been around since all my daughters were in junior high, since my hair was brown, okay? That's how long Calais Campbell's been around, and he's old, but he produces, and he's playing. He's just not somebody, because of his age, you can keep giving contracts to. I remember the day he was drafted, and Mike Mayock, before he foolishly joined the Raiders, Mayock was talking that Campbell was first-round talent that was drafted in later rounds because he had some trouble, and he's been nothing but a model citizen in the NFL. So what about a Calais Campbell? A little interior defender there, little rotational guy at a cutthroat price. Because, again, these guys get cheaper as we get closer to the draft and as we move closer towards summer and then eventually the start of the season. Justin Houston played with the Colts last year. He's bounced around quite a bit the last few years. But in a rotational situation, why not? Because Terrell Lewis gets hurt. We're going to find out about Chris Garrett. And, Justin Hollins played well last year, but he got hurt too. Why not? If it's not Jadeveon Clowney, right, at a cutthroat price. Jerry Hughes, same deal. Played in Buffalo for many years. You're not going to give him top flight money. And here's another name. Let's just say things go south with OBJ. Things go south with OBJ. Do you know who's still floating out there on the market? Jarvis Landry. Now, Landry would be another form of Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods type. He's one of those classic receivers who does a little bit of everything. And you love Jarvis Landry as a player. I don't know what he grades out, but you've seen him. He blocks well. He does other things, a locker room guy. And he's in the street right now. And the longer this goes on, the cheaper he's going to be. Again, I talked about yesterday about how the wide receiver market is being, I have to say, deflated in some ways. As some of these teams are looking with their number one, and they don't want to give him $30 million a year, and that's what they're giving Tyreek and Devontae Adams. When there are so many receivers coming into the NFL now, somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 projected in the first 2 rounds are going to go. Receivers, 6 are projected to go in the first round in 2021 and 2022. Over something like over almost 30 receivers, 20 plus receivers were taken in the first 2 rounds. There's a flood of receivers on the market right now. The incredible athletes are going to receiver. They're running routes longer. They understand the game better. They're ready to play now. And then by the time they work out that first contract, maybe you keep them, but maybe you let them walk because you can bring in somebody else. And so what's the market for a great veteran receiver like Jarvis Landry? I think it's going to get cheaper as time goes on. One name that kind of popped with me a little bit, and I'm careful about this because I got burned on Cordell Patterson. I really wanted Cordell Patterson to become a Ram. I did not know what the Rams had in mind with Allen Robinson at the time. But is a guy named Steve Nelson. Steven Nelson, he played for Philly last year. He's really cheap, and he's more of a zone cover guy, and he might add some depth to that Rams secondary. Again, you got Jalen Ramsey in the corner, and then you got the slot position, and then you got the outside boundary corner, and we're talking Robert Rochelle, we're talking David Long Jr., and whether we think they could fill the positions or not, I want to see the Rams dance with those guys. But David Long is going to be playing his contract year, and so why not take a look at Steven Nelson? And especially I say this because I don't know what the word is on Dante Dion. I thought Dante Dion was fantastic for what was expected of him with the Rams last year. And I originally saw in February, and I reported on it here, I saw Dante Dion had signed a $900,000 contract with the Rams, and now I'm not seeing that anymore, and I'm not seeing him listed on any of the sites, Over the Cap, Spot Track, or any of these other places. I think even PFF, I haven't seen it, as being listed with the Rams, so I don't know if that contract was offered or if it was a miscommunique or something that was offered and pulled back or something Dion didn't sign. I don't know, but Dante Dion performed well last year. He nearly took Darius Williams' job last year in the midseason when Williams was struggling. And so the Rams could use some depth. So think of Steven Nelson, not a big name. He's a free agent out there. Played with Philly last year. Or just bring Dante Dion back, right? Bring Dante Dion back. Man, I need a sneeze button here. Man, allergies, right? And so talking about the draft, getting into the draft and seeing what teams are going to take as we're now 23 days from saying Jacksonville's on the clock. This is the Rams' first draft in a number of years without Brad Holmes giving input. The Rams draft board last year was getting put together during the season in 2020, during the 2020 season. And it wasn't until I think we turned the corner at the end of that season after we lost in Green Bay that Brad Holmes eventually got the job in Detroit as their GM. Rams got 2 third-round picks as compensations, compensatory picks for a minority hiring. So good win all the way around. But, we've been talking about how the Rams have been hitting on all of their drafts. And we got to believe, and I believe, that a lot of the names they drafted last year were already on the board when Brad Holmes left to Detroit. But this is the first year that in this 2022 draft with 8 picks that Brad Holmes doesn't have any input. So it'll be interesting to see how this draft plays out. And it's going to be interesting to track Detroit for the next couple of years and see how some of those draft picks pan out for Detroit, because we think Brad Holmes is pretty good. Obviously, a lot of teams think Brad Holmes is pretty good. Again, the draft starts April 28th for the NFL. It starts April 29th for the Rams on the second day with the second and third round picks. Rams have the 104th pick on the second day. And then I think they're going to do all their damage on the third day. So it'll be interesting to see. Looking forward to it. And this is the best part about being a Ram fan is you get to avoid the glitz. I hope you understand what I'm saying. You get to avoid the glitz, the red carpet, all that fluff that just doesn't amount to much in terms of what it is in those first round picks. I really don't care how they dress. I hate all the interviews. It's just, give me the second day, third day, where you have to do a little investigation. And then you find out that's where the team won the Super Bowl. The team didn't win the Super Bowl first round picks. They won the Super Bowl by hitting everything else after it. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm seeing some buzz. I don't have all the names. Buzz, like who's going to replace Johnny Hekker? Everyone, the 2 draftable punters in the draft. The only 2 names that I see as draftable are Matt Ariza out of San Diego State. He also doubled as a kicker last year. People like Matt Ariza a lot, but if they like him, is he going to last until, if I'm the Rams, I'm not spending a 3rd, 4th, or 5th for a punter. Maybe one of the 5, 6th, or 7th round picks the Rams have might work. Also, Jordan Stout is the one from Penn State. He's another one that looks like a draftable punter, and he was at the Senior Bowl. So go figure what the Rams like to do with Senior Bowl people. Other names that have popped up: Blake Hayes, Trenton Gill, Brandon Wright, who was with the Rams, I think, practice squad for a while last year. He's kicking in the USFL now. It is a big deal. It is a big deal when you talk about punters. And the reason I bring that up also is because today is the birthday of former Ram punter Dale Hatcher. You might not remember Dale Hatcher, but Dale Hatcher joined the Rams in 1985, 3rd round, 77th overall, and out of Clemson, and he made the Pro Bowl. I think he had like a 43-yard average. He was like the first good punter the Rams had seen in my lifetime. So as a Ram fan, I'm growing up and I'm seeing Ray Guy, right? The gold standard for punters. But Kansas City had Gerald Wilson and Detroit for a while had Herman Thunderfoot Weaver, and New York had Dave Jennings, and the 49ers had Tom Whittam. And there were some really good punters. The Dolphins had the versatile Larry Seipel, and there were just different punters that was like, man, why don't we have a punter like that? We don't have a good guy that can really boot the ball. Well, in the 85 draft, 3rd round, the Rams scored Dale Hatcher, and he went on to a Pro Bowl year in 1985. In fact, I can remember watching games that year and looking at Dwayne Barker, my friend who works at MidValleySports.com. He's the photographer there. We go, isn't it great that the Rams finally have a punter? You grew up a Ram fan from the early 70s to the mid 80s. You're suffering through the likes of a fading Dave Chappell, Dwayne Carroll, Rusty Jackson, Glenn Walker, all these names that kept coming through, even Frank Corral for a while. The Rams just never had a punter. And so that one year in 85, Hatcher was a Pro Bowler. He was great. And then everything went south after that. And he kind of came and went a few times, was released, went to Frisco in 92, got cut, went to Miami, played in 93, but he never replicated that first season. And but today, Dale Hatcher is 58. So happy birthday to Dale Hatcher. Also today, turning 45, is former Rams quarterback Mark Bulger. And he was a free agent that kind of bounced around for a while, and eventually he stuck with the Rams in 2002. He's out of West Virginia. But the Saints had him. The Falcons had a shot at him for a little bit. And then he ended up playing for the Rams under contract for the Rams for about 9 years, his starter for most of those years. He was the guy that pushed Kurt Warner out of town. And the unfortunate thing about Mark Bulger is he played for those sorry Rams that were in the post greatest show on turf days, and where all the decisions were bad. Scott Linehan type of decisions. Steve Spagnuolo, the type of decisions. 2-14 type seasons where they weren't spending any money and they just looked awful. The Rams were just awful. They kept missing on all the draft picks. Carroll, you name it, the Rams drafted it if it was garbage. And Lesney didn't take over until 2012. But Mark Bulger was a pretty good quarterback. He had a plus interception touchdown ratio. He had 124 touchdowns, 90 interceptions. But he played some really good ball. He actually made a couple Pro Bowls. The Rams went to the playoffs with him a couple times. Mark Bulger was a good quarterback. He was the best quarterback the Rams had since Matthew Stafford came, right? You go to the Kurt Warner high point, you go Mark Bulger, and then you got to bump over everybody until you get to Matthew Stafford. And the unfortunate thing about Mark Bulger is that he got the snot beat out of him. And by the time he went to Baltimore at the end of his career, he was a backup, but he was washed. And that's the shame of it, is that he really doesn't get the recognition. You think of guys like Mark Bulger, Steven Jackson, some of those guys, James Laurinaitis even. I don't think he was as good as those other two, but James Laurinaitis, even Chris Long to a degree. They all played in St. Louis, and they had their best years there, but they were wasted. They were wasted by poor ownership, poor management, poor coaches, and it really wasn't until, the Rams got here. I think Snead took more and more control, and then obviously he built his staff, built his scouting department, and then, of course, brought in finally the right coach in Sean McVay. But Mark Bulger turns 45 today. That seems so young, right? It seems like, man, his career ended in his early 30s, and he was washed. By the time he was 32, 33, he had the snot beat out of him, and he was washed. And here we're talking about Brady being 45 and still playing, and Matthew Stafford, I think. I'm trying to remember how old Matthew Stafford is right now. 35? He's going to be 35 this coming season. And they're still at the top of their game. And again, it's just a thing how things are changing in terms of these athletes where, not different for running backs, but we used to think, man, once they hit 30, the clock's ticking, it's almost over. And yet we're seeing, because of their training and the money they make, they're allowed, affords them the ability to take care of themselves. All right, folks, that's all we have for today. I'm Joe Terosian, and I also moonlight. I'm not going to say I moonlight. My day job is I am a minister of a small church in Burbank Faith Church of the Nazarene. You can follow us here on Burbank for Faith Virtual for that. Not that you're going to. You don't have to. But I'm just letting you know my background. Also, spent years as a sports writer, sports editor at Mid-Valley Sports and Mid-Valley News. And I've written a couple books, and I supplement my income this way. I've recently written Sin Virus, which is a dystopian Christian novel. Also, my high school football novel is Tangent Dreams. It's both these books, all my books, including The Dark Norm, which is about bullying, are all on Amazon. And if I'm not doing a Patreon here or anything like that. I'm still small potatoes. But if you want to support this and support me in my day job, support me in what I do to keep doing this, that would be awesome. And I think they're good reads as well. They've gotten good reviews. Okay, folks, are coming up to the 19-minute mark. I'm Joe Terosian, and I will be back mañana, and we'll be talking more Rams football as we get closer and closer to that second day of the draft, right? Okay, God bless, folks. We'll talk to you soon.